So here's the question: why do so many students and people living paycheck to paycheck feel stuck? Like no matter how hard they work, they can't save a single dollar. I get it. I was there too. Back when I was starting out, I literally had nothing, and every expense felt like it was pulling me deeper into the cycle of being broke. But here's the good news in this video. I'm going to break down the student money blueprint, the exact steps you can take to go from love to actual savings, even if you're starting with nothing. By the end, you'll know how to manage your money smarter, build savings consistently, and finally escape living hand to mouth. Most students and people living hand to mouth find themselves caught in the never-ending cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. And the problem with this cycle is that it feels almost impossible to escape. You get money, you spend money, and by the end of the week or the month, there's nothing left. This leaves you anxious, stressed, and constantly waiting for the next paycheck or allowance just to breathe again. The deeper issue is that this cycle tricks you into believing that being broke is normal, that it's simply the way life works when you're young or just starting out. You tell yourself that once you graduate, once you get a job, or once you earn more, everything will get better. But the truth is, without changing the habits that keep you in this cycle, more money alone won't fix the problem. Many people making double or triple your income are still broke because the cycle is built on habits, not just numbers. The solution is to break this cycle deliberately by flipping the script on how you handle money from the very moment it enters your hands. Instead of letting money control you and disappear without a trace, you take control by deciding exactly where every single dollar goes. That means no more waiting until the end of the month to see what's left to save, because if you're living paycheck to paycheck, what's left is always zero. The real change happens when you save first and spend second, no matter how small that savings amount is. Even if it's only $5, the habit matters more than the number. By doing this, you're telling yourself and your finances that your future comes before impulse spending, and that one small shift alone begins to break the paycheck to paycheck pattern. For example, imagine a student named Alex who gets a $200 weekly allowance from part-time work. In the past, Alex would spend freely grabbing takeout 3 times a week, buying coffee every morning, and spending on subscriptions without even noticing. By the end of the week, the $200 was gone and the cycle repeated. Alex always felt broke and assumed it was because the income was too small. Now, let's say Alex decided to apply the save first principle. On the very day that $200 comes in, Alex moves $20, just 10%, into a separate savings account. The rule is simple. That money is untouchable unless it's a real emergency. With the remaining $180, Alex makes a weekly spending plan, which forces smarter decisions. Instead of daily coffee shop runs, Alex invests in a 15 coffee maker. Instead of 3 takeouts a week, Alex limits it to 1 and meal preps the rest. The first week feels restrictive, but by the end of the month, Alex is surprised to see $80 in savings that never existed before. Multiply that over a year, and that's more than thousands, not from earning more money, but from breaking this cycle with one deliberate habit. This example shows how small adjustments completely change the outcome. The cycle of living paycheck to paycheck thrives on mindless spending and the belief that you don't have enough to save. The solution doesn't require sudden wealth or massive income. It requires shifting priorities, taking control before money slips through your hands, and proving to yourself that saving is always possible even at zero. Over time, those savings create breathing room, and that breathing room builds momentum. It doesn't erase the struggle overnight, but it turns the cycle from one of scarcity into one of growth. Once you see that first 20 turn into 200, and then 100,000, you realize the cycle is breakable, and that's the first and most powerful step toward financial independence. One of the biggest problems students and people living paycheck to paycheck face is that they don't actually know where their money goes. It's not that they're intentionally careless, but when income is already small, every little purchase feels justified. A coffee here, a snack there, a quick online subscription, or splitting an Uber with friends, individually, none of these seem like a big deal. But combined, they drain your wallet faster than you realize. At the end of the week or the month, you check your balance and feel shocked at how fast the money disappeared. The frustration comes not just from being broke, but from not being able to point to anything meaningful you bought with that money. This is the problem of untracked spending. Money slips away silently, and you don't feel in control. Without tracking, your budget feels like a guessing game, and you constantly underestimate how much those small expenses add up. The solution is simple but powerful: track every single dollar. That doesn't mean you need complicated spreadsheets or financial apps if you don't want them, though those tools can help. It means you adopt the mindset that every dollar has a purpose and you need to know exactly what it did. The moment money comes in, you write down where it will go. The moment money leaves, you record it. At first, it might feel tedious, but this habit transforms the way you see your finances. When you track, you don't just see what you spent, you start noticing patterns, leaks, and habits that are silently keeping you broke. Maybe you realize you're spending $6 a month on food delivery, or $4 on subscriptions you barely use. Once you see the numbers clearly, it's no longer about guessing, it's about choosing. Tracking creates awareness, and awareness creates control. With control, you can cut waste, redirect money to savings, And finally, feel confident about your financial situation. Take the example of Sarah, a college student who always felt like her paycheck vanished into thin air. She believed she was spending responsibly. No big shopping sprees, no luxury items, but she was always broke by mid-month. Frustrated, Sarah decided to track every dollar for just 1 month. She downloaded a free expense tracking app, but she could have just as easily used a notebook. Every time she spent money, she entered it immediately. At first, it was annoying, but after a week, she started to notice a pattern. She was spending $5 on coffee 4 times a week, 12 on late-night fast food runs twice a week, and almost 100 combined on multiple streaming services and memberships she barely touched. By the end of the month, the app showed she had spent nearly $250 on things she didn't even remember buying. That number shocked her because it explained exactly why she felt broke. Her money wasn't going to meaningful things. It was leaking away in small amounts. Once Sarah saw the problem, she made adjustments. She bought a reusable coffee mug and started making coffee at home for $0.50 a cup, saving $60 a month. She canceled 2 streaming services she rarely used, saving another $25. And she set a weekly food budget so late-night fast food trips wouldn't spiral out of control. In the first month of making these small changes, Sarah freed up $100, which she immediately moved into savings. Within 3 months, she had $300 saved up, a number she had never seen in her account before. What made the difference wasn't earning more, it was tracking every dollar and seeing clearly where her money had been going all along. Tracking turns your finances from a mystery into a map. Without it, you're wandering blind, constantly wondering why you're broke. With it, you're in control, spotting patterns, eliminating waste, and making choices with purpose. Tracking every dollar doesn't just save you money. It gives you the awareness and discipline to build a financial foundation, no matter how small your income starts. One of the most overlooked problems students and people living hand-to-mouth face is the silent drain of hidden expenses. These aren't the big, obvious purchases like rent, tuition, or groceries that you plan for. They're the smaller, less noticeable costs that quietly eat away at your money without you even realizing it. Subscriptions you forgot to cancel, automatic renewals for apps you barely use, convenience fees from ATMs, food delivery charges, or impulse buys made because the amount seemed too small to matter. All of these add up faster than you think. The danger with hidden expenses is that they don't feel painful in the moment. Paying $3 here, $7 there, or letting a $10 subscription renew doesn't sound like much, but added together over weeks and months, they silently erode your ability to save. The problem is not just the money itself, but the lack of awareness. You feel like you're being careful with your spending, yet your account balance tells a different story. This creates frustration because you can't see where the money is going, and it convinces you that saving is impossible on your income when, in reality, much of your cash is slipping away unnoticed. The solution is to identify and eliminate these hidden expenses before they eat up your hard-earned money. The first step is conducting a financial audit on yourself. This means going through your bank statements, credit card bills, and digital payment histories line by line to spot every recurring charge, every fee, and every small purchase you may have ignored. Once you do this, the waste becomes visible. That 15 monthly subscription you forgot about is $180 a year. Those 5 ATM fees you pay twice a month are $120 a year. Delivery fees from ordering food 3 times a week add another $300 or more annually. Once you see these numbers in yearly terms, it's hard to ignore how much of your income is being drained. The second step is to replace or cut them. Cancel subscriptions you don't use, switch to free alternatives, withdraw cash in larger amounts to avoid ATM fees, and choose cooking or meal prepping instead of paying for food delivery. Even renegotiating your phone bill or switching to a cheaper plan can put extra money back in your pocket every month. The goal is to stop money leaks so that the money you already have works for you instead of slipping away. Consider the example of Daniel, a student who always complained about never being able to save. He earned $500 a month from a part-time job, and after paying rent and food, he believed the leftover amount was too small to matter. One day, he sat down and reviewed his bank statements for the past 3 months. To his surprise, he discovered that he was paying for 3 different streaming platforms at once, costing him $40 every month. He also noticed that food delivery was costing him an average of $80 per month, mostly from small convenience orders late at night. On top of that, Daniel realized he had been hit with 6 ATM fees in the last 3 months simply because he withdrew cash in small amounts. Altogether, he was losing nearly $150 a month without realizing it. That's almost 1/3 of his entire income. Once Daniel saw the numbers clearly, he decided to make changes. He canceled 2 of the streaming services and kept only the one he used most, saving $30 monthly. He committed to cooking at home 4 nights a week, cutting his delivery spending in half and freeing up another $40. To fix the ATM issue, he started withdrawing larger sums once a month from a no-fee ATM, completely eliminating that hidden cost. By making these adjustments, Daniel immediately freed up $100 every month. Instead of vanishing into hidden expenses, that $100 went straight into a savings account. By the end of the year, Daniel had saved first $200, something he never thought was possible on his income. What changed wasn't his paycheck. It was his awareness and his willingness to cut out the money leaks that had been draining him silently for months. This example proves that hidden expenses are often the real culprit behind the feeling of being stuck. They are sneaky, small, and easy to dismiss in the moment, but collectively they prevent you from building even the smallest safety net. By identifying and eliminating them, you reclaim money you already earn, turning invisible losses into visible progress. Once you start cutting hidden expenses, the financial pressure eases, and saving becomes possible even without an increase in income. A major problem students and people living hand-to-mouth face is believing that saving money is only possible once they start making more. When income is already tight, it feels pointless to set aside $1 or $2 because the amount seems so small it won't make a difference. This mindset creates a barrier that keeps people stuck. They keep waiting for the right time to save the day when their paycheck is bigger or their expenses are lower, but that time never comes. The truth is that if you can't save $1 out of 10, you won't magically start saving when you have 100 or 1,000. The real problem is not the amount of money, but the lack of habit. Without a consistent practice of saving, every increase in income will disappear the same way as before, swallowed up by new expenses and lifestyle upgrades. This creates a cycle where saving always feels like something that belongs in the future instead of something that starts right now. The solution is to start small and save consistently, no matter how little you can put aside. Even if it's only $1 a day, the key is building the muscle of saving, training your mind and behavior to prioritize setting money aside before spending. The psychological effect of seeing even a tiny balance grow is powerful because it shifts your identity from someone who is always broke to someone who is capable of saving. Consistency is more important than the number. A small, regular contribution builds momentum and proves to you that saving is possible regardless of income level. Over time, those small amounts compound into something meaningful, and the habit is already in place when your income grows, making it far easier to scale up your savings. The act of saving consistently also forces you to become more mindful about your spending because you're committing to protect that small contribution rather than letting it slip away for impulse purchases. Take the example of Maya, a student living on a very tight budget while working part-time. She brought home about $150 a week, and after paying for transportation, school supplies, and basic living costs, there was almost nothing left. Maya felt frustrated because she believed she couldn't possibly save anything until she earned more. But instead of waiting, she decided to challenge herself to save just $5 every week. On the day she got paid, she immediately transferred that $5 into a separate account, no exceptions. At first, it felt silly because $5 seemed too small to matter. But after 4 weeks, she saw a $20 sitting in her savings account. By the end of 3 months, it was $60. That small amount gave her a surprising sense of confidence because for the first time, she had money set aside that wasn't already spoken for. Encouraged, Maya gradually increased her savings to 10 per week, then to 15, as she found small ways to cut back on unnecessary spending. After a year, she had saved over $500, something she once thought was impossible. That $500 gave her a cushion she could rely on in emergencies, and it changed the way she thought about money. The lesson from Maya's story is that starting small isn't about the amount. It's about creating the identity of a saver. Once the habit is in place, the amount can always be scaled up when income grows. Without the habit, no increase in money will ever translate into savings because expenses will always expand to match income. Consistency builds trust in yourself. Each week you prove that you can save, and those small wins accumulate into a foundation of financial stability. The key is to start where you are with what you have and commit to doing it over and over again until saving becomes automatic. One of the biggest problems students face when trying to save money is that they often overlook the unique advantages and resources available to them. Many fall into the trap of thinking they are at a disadvantage compared to full-time workers because their income is smaller. But what they don't realize is that being a student often comes with access to benefits, discounts, and opportunities that others simply don't get. The problem is that these resources are either ignored, underutilized, or not even known about. For example, many students continue to pay full price for transportation, software, or meals without realizing there are student discounts that could cut those costs in half. Others pass up free financial workshops, grants, or career resources offered by their school because they assume they won't make a big difference. By failing to leverage these built-in advantages, students end up paying more than they need to and miss out on opportunities to save money and stretch their limited income further. This not only drains their finances, but also reinforces the belief that saving is impossible while studying. The solution is to actively search for and take advantage of every resource and benefit that comes with being a student. Schools, governments, and even private companies provide a range of discounts, grants, and free programs designed specifically for students, but the responsibility lies in knowing they exist and applying them consistently. Something as small as a student ID card can unlock discounts on public transport, clothing, software like Microsoft Office or Adobe, streaming platforms, and even meals at certain restaurants. Universities often provide access to free gyms, counseling, tutoring, and career centers that, if paid for independently, would cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars. On top of that, many schools run scholarship programs or emergency grants that can provide financial relief if you take the time to apply. Beyond formal programs, students also have the advantage of being in an environment that encourages learning and side hustles, meaning they can often explore freelance work, internships, or research projects with flexible hours that still allow them to earn and save. By actively seeking these opportunities and resources, students can dramatically lower their expenses, redirecting that money toward savings, and even increase their income without overburdening themselves. For example, consider James, a college sophomore who constantly felt like he was barely surviving on his part-time income. He worked 15 hours a week at a campus cafe and made about $450 a month, which disappeared quickly after paying rent and basic expenses. James believed saving was out of reach because his paycheck was simply too small. One day, however, he attended a financial literacy workshop offered by his school and learned about student resources. He discovered that his city offered a discounted student transit pass that cut his transportation costs from $6 a month down to the $25. He also realized his university provided free access to Microsoft Office and research databases, which meant he could cancel 2 paid subscriptions he was using, saving another $20 a month. Additionally, James applied for a small need-based scholarship offered by his department and was awarded $500 for the semester, money he never knew was available to him. On top of these savings, he signed up for a freelancing platform where he used his writing skills to earn an extra $100 a month by editing papers for non-native English speakers. Altogether, these changes freed up nearly $80 a month and added a scholarship bonus to his finances. James put that money into a savings account, and within 6 months, he had nearly $30,000 saved, a number he once thought was impossible on his income. James's experience shows how powerful it can be to leverage student advantages. The resources were always there, but until he made the effort to look for them and apply them, he was stuck paying more than he needed to and missing out on extra income. Once he started using his student discounts, applying for scholarships, and seeking out flexible opportunities, his financial situation shifted from feeling hopeless to being manageable. This proves that the problem isn't always income itself, but the failure to use the benefits that come with being a student. By maximizing those resources, students can stretch their limited income further, save consistently, and even create financial breathing room while still in school. One of the most common problems students and people living hand-to-mouth face is not having a system for their money. They might earn some income from part-time jobs, allowances, or side hustles, but once the money comes in, it disappears without direction. Most people rely on memory or rough estimates to manage their spending, which almost always leads to overspending or being surprised when the account balance runs low. Without a clear structure, money feels chaotic and unpredictable, and that chaos makes it nearly impossible to save consistently. Even when someone manages to save for a short period, the lack of a plan means the habit usually doesn't last. Money ends up being controlled by emotions and impulses instead of a clear system, keeping people trapped in the same cycle month after month. The absence of structure is what creates financial stress, because every expense feels like an emergency and every bill feels like it comes out of nowhere. The solution is to build a simple, scalable money system that organizes income and expenses automatically, making it easy to stay consistent regardless of how much you earn. The key is to avoid complicated budgets that are difficult to maintain, because they often lead to frustration and quitting. Instead, start with a straightforward system that divides income into clear categories: essentials, savings, and spending. For example, 50% of income goes to essentials like rent, food, and transportation, 20% goes directly into savings, and the remaining 30% can be used for personal spending. This is just a framework and can be adjusted depending on individual circumstances, but the point is to give every dollar a job before it disappears. Setting up separate bank accounts or digital wallets can make this system automatic. As soon as money comes in, it's divided according to the percentages, so saving doesn't depend on willpower and overspending is easier to spot. Once the system is in place, it can be scaled up easily. Whether someone earns $200,000 or $20,000, the structure remains the same. It simply grows with the income, ensuring that saving and stability are always built into the process. For example, consider Emily, a student who often felt overwhelmed by her finances. She worked at a bookstore and earned about $600 a month. Every time she got paid, she would use the money without much planning. Rent took a big chunk, groceries took another, and by the time the month ended, she had no idea where the rest had gone. She tried budgeting on paper once but found it too complicated and gave up after a week. Then Emily learned about setting up a simple money system. She opened a second bank account just for savings and decided to use a 50-20-30 split with her income. On payday, she immediately transferred $120 or 20% into the savings account. She set aside $300 for essentials like rent and groceries, and the remaining $180 was left in her checking account for personal spending. At first, she was worried the split would feel restrictive, but she quickly realized it made life easier. She no longer felt guilty when she spent money on herself because she knew her essentials and savings were already covered. After 3 months, she had $360 in her savings account, which gave her peace of mind and motivated her to keep going. Over time, Emily's system grew with her. When she picked up extra shifts during the summer and started earning $1,000 a month, she applied the same percentages, automatically saving $200 without thinking about it. The habit of dividing her income was now effortless, and it gave her confidence because she could see her money working for her. By using a simple structure, Emily took the stress and uncertainty out of her finances. What once felt like chaos turned into a predictable routine, and that routine created stability. The system wasn't complicated, but it was powerful because it gave her control and scaled naturally as her income increased. This approach proved that managing money isn't about being perfect or tracking every cent manually. It's about building a framework that's easy to follow and consistent enough to protect her from slipping back into old habits. So, quick recap, we talked about breaking the paycheck to paycheck cycle, tracking every single dollar, cutting out those hidden expenses that drain your wallet, starting small but saving consistently, using student discounts and resources to your advantage, and finally, building a simple money system that scales with your income. If you got value from this, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more content like this, and drop a comment below sharing your biggest financial struggle as a student or someone living hand to Moth. I'd love to hear your story. And don't miss the next video where I'm going to cover the exact side hustles you can start right now with zero upfront cost to boost your income while studying. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.